Thank you very much. Mr. Edmund Bon, for this legal perspective on this issue. So this brings us to the end of our first stage of this conversation. So now I would like to move on to the questions and answer session. So as raised by some of our participants. So I have a first question here, which is directed at Dr. Sriprapha. So the question is, how do we amend a constitutional provision that makes it seditious to question the role and relevance of the monarchy, even via debate in parliament, when the constitution already makes such an action or attempt impossible and illegal?
As I already mentioned, that out of 7 proposals for constitutional amendment, only 2 of them were voted for. One proposed by opposition parties, another one proposed by the ruling parties. Of course, none of the 2 indicate, any other amendment to the constitution regarding the chapter on monarchy. So you have in the Thai constitution, you have the whole chapter on the monarchy. So it's quite the person who asked this question is quite correct. The constitution itself made it more or less impossible for any amendment. However, I feel that even without amendment in the constitution, I think the fact that we are currently debating openly in the Thai society for the first time. Usually the Thai people are gossiping here and there. So we hear gossip about different members of the royal families on regular basis, but never openly like this time. It has been debated, and we see some changes already. As I said, even the amendment of the constitution regarding this particular matter may not be possible this time, but at least the demands already laid the groundwork, for questioning the power relationships in Thailand. And by power relationships, I refer to, for example, power relationships between students and teachers. If you look at the demands of the bad student movements, then it's really something about their daily life, and there have been discussions. And I'm also referring to power relationships, between, for example, government and the people, military and the people, and who knows in the future, relationships between military and monarchy. Who knows in the future? I'm not quite sure if it will be in the near or far future, but the groundwork is already there.
Dr. Sriprapha, we have a second question for you. So what is the significance that these protests are leaderless? Is it a defensive mechanism, or does it simply show that they have been organized like in a spontaneous manner and coordinated via social media?
I saw that this question was from Andrew Koo. Well, I think it could be seen from 2 different angles. One, it could be part of their defensive strategies. As we know, and Edmund has already mentioned that, as we know, one by one, some of their leading members of the movements were arrested and charged. In fact, a few of our Thai students in our master program have been leading movements, and they were arrested and charged. I think one of them was in jail for a few weeks. So as soon as some of their leading members were arrested and charged, new leaders came in. So I think this is quite good strategy. You don't have any fix except a few of them. Some names that you may know already. But then at some point, demonstrators just came together without any leader. I think in a few of them, I saw demonstrators just came together, insisting on their demands without any leaders. But I don't think the demonstrations are spontaneous. As in my opinion, they seem to plan, whilst in the same time, brought some surprise to the public, and they assert more or less the same demands. So, some kind of planning and strategies are there, in my opinion.
Mhm. Okay, and one last question to Dr. Sriprapha. Yeah, so does it make the police less violent by including senior high school students in these protests?
I was amazed. We organized some events at the Institute of Human Rights and Peace Studies, and I met a few school students, secondary school students, not even high school students. And I was asking one of them why they came to the event and why she joined the protest. And she said, first of all, she just joined without knowing anything. But then bit by bit, she learned more. Of course, her parents didn't want her to join, although they were not completely banning her. They were even driving her, to our campus. So it's about curiosities. It's about increasing interest of students to know more what is going on around them. And as I said, some of their demands, especially high school students, are relating to issues which are affecting their daily life. For example, the wearing of the regulations for students to wear uniform, the regulations for students to stand up for the flag, for example, at 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. For national anthem, for example. So, they start questioning on this thing. Then I think what was happening was that the first crackdown or protest happened in October in front of Mabun Krong MBK when police officers actually used the water cannon and tear gas that protesters, some of them injured. And this crackdown disdained their parents who later, came out. And I think, for these reasons, for me, the cause of committing any violence or more violence, against the protester could actually lead to, in many ways, the legitimizing of the government, including the military, and maybe who knows, the higher institution.
Thank you, Dr. Sriprapha. Yeah, we have quite a few questions from the audience. So the next question I would like to ask Dr. Zarni. Yeah, so the question is, noted that the current protests are more explicitly questioning the monarchy compared to earlier protests, but given that there does not seem to be any political will for change from the monarchy, military, and elites, why should we expect the outcome this time to be different? Why shouldn't we expect a repeat of the Thammasat massacre and further elite consolidation of power this time?
What I would say is Voltaire, the French philosopher that was crucial in the French Revolution. He said, the idea whose time has come cannot be stopped. Yeah? I mean, the Thai military and other security forces can, massacre as many students and protesters on the streets as possible, but they're in no position to massacre a new consciousness. and that is very, very important. And as an anti-feudalist, I have seen the outcome. The outcome is on the side of the, in favor of the people. A new generation rejecting the legitimacy and the hegemony and the domination of their mind by a single family, backed by a modern army. That is already an outcome we are seeing. Otherwise, we won't be having the discussion. We just, go. I mean, I got up at 4:30 in the morning to join. I'm in UK to join this conversation because I am inspired. Think about it. 5,000 miles away from Bangkok, I am inspired at the age of 57 by young students in Thailand. That is an outcome. And
thank you, Dr. Zarini. Yeah, I have a second question, for you. It does not seem that the current protests are necessarily backed by the entire population, and the monarchy and the Palang Pracharat regime still seem to command much genuine popular support. How will polarization affect the outcome of the current crisis? And a related question to that, is there a possibility that a silent majority will eventually come out to oppose the protesters?
Oh, the silent majority. I'm not sure. Who is the silent majority? You have a situation where rural population has been mobilized in previous movements. In support of Thaksin's government. And, of course, we cannot say that the farmers come out just so that they could get some crumbs from Thaksin's billionaire regime. They also are aware that, that it is their democratic rights, or, the propaganda, the monarchist and the feudal propaganda, as Ajahn Sriprapha mentioned, is daily and sustained over decades. 8 in the morning, 6 p.m. In every public space, and there is national anthem played. And so the Thai people, just like any one of us, is not born feudalist or monarchist. They have been subject to extreme and systematic propaganda to revere this institution. And I think that grip over the Thai consciousness has been broken, and I would say broken irreversibly. I think the silent majority, if there is that moral majority, that came out of this regressive right-wing Reagan politics in the United States. And the majority of people in the world are those who are ruled and manipulated. Once their consciousness awaken, you cannot put the genie back into the box. That's what I'm saying. It may take longer. This is, mind you, this is connected to previous waves of democratization efforts that date back to 1930s. This is an intergenerational process, and we need to have a historical perspective. We cannot expect results in the next 5 years. This is ongoing. That's why I think the other one is the leaderless protest. And to a degree it is true, but also these leadership circles that they coordinate, and then even some of the students who emerge as leaders or young lawyers, they were at the launch of our organized or network at the KL FORSEA. Some of the people that I've seen, in Time magazine and others mentioned as a leading spokesperson, they were in Kuala Lumpur. We brought 10 Thai dissidents to Kuala Lumpur, about 6 of them to Paris, over the last 2 or 3 years. Isham, my colleague, is there as well. And so I think this is not as leaderless as it seems. There are a lot of coordinations and collaboration behind the scenes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zarini. If there is any other panelist who would like to add to the answer given by Dr. Zarini, please feel free to do so. You can always raise your hand.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Hishamuddin.
These things, the most amazing thing is that it's always like in Indonesia before, during the Reformasi time, during the anti-Suharto time, anti-democratic junta, they will always say that organisasi tanpa bentuk, an organization without structure, structureless organization. Yes. Well, as Zani was saying, that it has to be organized. Yes, it is spontaneous. The feeling is spontaneous. There must be an organization. What is more interesting thing is that when they say that, like Dr. Sri say, we are leaderless. Everyone is no leadership. Like the ones happened in Hong Kong protests, the leaders are. What is meant is that it is not structurally organized. That means he's the president. That is what is that? There is this unity of purpose, the desire, the united front of a common desire. So that's what happened. Yes, we have to have certain, because we have to have reference point, what time to come out, where to meet, how to do, if people arrested, what we're going to do. These are things that happen in the street protest. Whoever participated in the street protest, we understand they have that. We have the medical support, we have this, we have the police, all these things we needed. So there is, yes, when you say that leaderless, mean there is not this person who projects himself or herself to be the leaders of the movement, so as the next time they will take over and run as a member of parliament, and run and want to be the future prime minister of Malaysia, for example. You understand? That is what it meant by leaderless. So it is a natural situation where people organize. You must, as I've said, I always admire how the Thai managed to organize, Dr. Sri. How then school children? We can never get a school children, to organize. So how did the parent allow them to come? So there must be this thing there's a unison of desire between the older generation and the younger generation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hishamuddin. Yeah, so now I have a question for Dr. Sriprapha. Yeah, so given the uniqueness of the Thai situation in Southeast Asia, arising from the power nexus between the monarchy, military, and feudal elite, how realistically can parallels be drawn with the rest of the region, given that other ASEAN countries do not have this sort of nexus?
Before I try to address this question, which is quite difficult, and I think in some way Edmund and Hisham, have touched upon in their talk earlier. Just want to maybe to add two things on what Sani and Hisham have already mentioned. First of all, about silent majority. Silent majority. I think I'm just looking, around me. For example, at the university, we saw silent majority there, and majority of them. I'm not quite sure, but at least at the institute, we are quite supportive to to students, not only our students. But then I think maybe I'm not quite sure it was Sani or not was right, that majority of the Thai people are still very supportive to the. I think there was one question about this as well. To the ruling party and to the monarchy, especially during the past 1 month, we already witnessed some changes of the monarch himself. For example, now they are meeting more with the people, allowing people to selfie. This is quite new. Yeah, no, this is very new. In the Thai society. When the royal families pose for selfie with the people, so we see some changes at least, but as I said, it may not immediately changed the power relationships, the relationship of authority in the Thai society. And as I said, majority of them silent are still supported to the institutions. The question that you just mentioned, it's true that the case of Thailand is quite unique. Uh, as you can see around South Asia, you have only 3 countries with monarchies: Thailand, Malaysia. Although according to the law, to the constitution, they are constitutional monarchy, but you still have absolute monarchy in Brunei, right? And of course, in Brunei, the monarchy is also playing politics because he's taking political positions in the cabinet. So they are quite different. And in a rather small country like Brunei, things is much easier to manage. And as Edmund has already mentioned, that the institution, this monarchical institution in Malaysia, is again different from Thailand, because in Thailand you have one, in Malaysia you have more than one. Although one was elected to have the power, but on rotation on election process, so we are quite different. But I believe that I believe change. I believe in change, although change may be slow. But I think bit by bit. I'm looking at ASEAN, for example. ASEAN itself. ASEAN spent 40 years in order to become a legal entity. As you know, ASEAN was established by a declaration for 40 years. Only in 2005 that they start thinking of having a charter in order to make ASEAN a legal entity. So what is happening, what is changing in ASEAN, although not that much, but we may see this change in different societies, in South Asia, in ASEAN as well. Just to end this, question and answer with saying that, as I mentioned earlier, that there may be changes, and we see some changes already, but this may not. We may not see drastic change because that is not in the culture of ASEAN anyway. Any drastic change, unless you have, like as Hisham mentioned, you got millions of people going on the street. And I feel that, and this is some of the analysis made by many, if ever the current government, the military, use very violent means, causing loss of lives, then I think you see definitely a change.
Thank you, Dr. Sriprapha. Yeah, so next question, I have a question from Indonesia, from Muhammad Reza Dwi Cahyo. Yeah, his question is, I have been following this case from 14 August 2020, and I saw the violence against the demonstrators. Okay, I have shared about what's happening in Thailand on my social. I would like to ask this question. Can we do more as an international society and common student in college effectively to help Thai people to have their democracy, or to make Thailand a better place, or in a better situation? Does our voice have an impact to help in this situation? I think I had a discussion with Dr. Zarni on this, so maybe Dr. Zarni can share more on this, how to build this solidarity, among nations in the region. Yeah, so to support democracy in the region.
First thing is, I think a lot of the people in our region do not speak English, and so sharing in the social media in local or national languages. But if you're following Thai events in English media, and then perhaps translate them into Bahasa Indonesia, so that the majority of Indonesian people on the Facebook and other platforms can learn. And second thing is more concretely, I don't know if you're aware, Thai dissidents, long before Thailand protests hit the global headlines, have fled the country, like Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, even Malaysia, and they need safe houses. They need the proper support networks, and so that's one area that many of us from outside Thailand can do. If at some point, the Thai the security troops have cracked down on the dissident movements in Bangkok, and then some of the leaders or some of the organizers that may choose to exile themselves. They may try to get out of Thailand to, say, like Indonesia or Kuala Lumpur, or across the borders from Patani. Then I think that Malaysian dissidents can set up support network, infrastructure to welcome these people, house them, work with local immigrations and say, do not send them back to Thai authorities. You see, that's that is very, very practical. I mean, my colleague Isham, he had fled the country a number of times, and he benefited from solidarity from Thai dissidents, Australian dissidents, Middle Eastern dissidents. I mean, maybe he has something to share as well.
Yep. Yeah, I would like to maybe ask, both Isham and Edmund. Maybe I'll go first with Isham, if he can tell us more about his experience regarding this solidarity, when he was promoting democracy. Mm-hmm.
Well, the solidarity, it has to be done. At that time, you see, we in Southeast Asia, there is called ASA, Asian Student Association. It was headquarters was in Hong Kong. It's all gone now. We have the Australia, New Zealand, the Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand. We have the NSCT, National Student Center of Thailand, which was formed after the 93 revolution. Okay. We have solidarity. We support each other. There was a communication, but there was a communication at that time. Yes, those days the communication was telex. Those days the communication was telephone. But now with the new technology, we could communicate like we are doing today. It's easier. But at the same time, the repressiveness, this technology we are using now is neutral. It can be used for revolution. It can be used for counter-revolution. It can use for progressiveness. It can use for repression. So it's up to us. So what is more important now, like we should have set solidarity. Yes, if they were coming here to run to Malaysia, for example, the Thai refugee, we tell the government, please do not deport them. Well, there are some refugees now, for example, from China, from mainland China, the Uyghur people, they come here and they stay there. And there are also some refugees from Rohingya. They're all here, they live. But unfortunately, Malaysia is not the signatory of the 1955 United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. So they are still here, but they were given the status. So these are the things that our brothers in Indonesia who asked the question, yes, we could. I think if they were to run away, the first thing they will run away, they will not run away to Burma. They have ran away to Cambodia and all that. Some of them ended up dead in the river, Some of them were assassinated in Cambodia. So the most likely how they will probably run to Malaysia. Yes, I will say it as the Arab will say, ahlan wa sahlan, most welcome. I will welcome them with open hand, because these are our brothers. They are in the process of creating a democratic space. A democracy in Thailand is also a democracy in Malaysia. Is also. So each of us have that. If we breathe repression, all of us are under repressive law. If there was a you see, when the Indonesian youth, students and people of Indonesia overthrew Suharto, It is a relief to all of us in Southeast Asia. The same thing. If thing changes in Malaysia, thing changes in the Philippines or in Korea, so this is the situation now. We are in a family of, as usual, in the family of 10 countries. Well, with the exception of Brunei. Brunei, let's forget about it because it's too small. We can just one day we just say, hello, where are you going? So that is to Brunei. I almost forgot until Dr. Sriprapha mentioned Brunei. In the political sense of Southeast Asia, we almost forgotten Brunei. Very wealthy, very rich, but very obsolete monarchy. But we forgot. But doesn't matter. So the solidarity will come if we are all prepared in the process of democratization.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hishamuddin. Maybe Mr. Edmund Bond would like to add something to this regarding the importance of this solidarity.
I was looking back at the timeline, and it's very interesting that if you look at the timeline of the Thai protests, it's all interconnected, but different issues that started to build up to the tension, right? So if you start with the timeline, February 2020, the Future Forward Party was dissolved by the Constitutional Court. Then you had the COVID emergency in March. Then you had the crackdown, the 10th anniversary commemoration in May, the crackdown against the red shirts where about 90 people died. And then in June, you had the exiled Thai activists who disappeared, and there wasn't actual work to try and look for him, Wan Chalam. And then the protest started with different themes, right? So there was commemoration of the 1932 Siamese revolution, which ended absolute monarchy in Thailand. Then there was discussions to talk about ending military rule, current military rule. And then in August, of course, that statement about how the monarchy should be reformed. And then the protests in the different universities continued, right? In Thammasat and then amendments to the constitution. So I think it's very interesting because while there's a build-up, it also created different interest groups in Thailand who started to got sticky to the protest, right? It wasn't just like last time, the red shirts or the yellow shirts that were taking one position or the other. There were also different interest groups, different human rights groups that were getting on board. So you could move somebody, arrest someone, charge someone, but then the movement kept developing. But this is organic. So when it is organic, we keep asking ourselves, and Hisham knows this the best, right? We were all educated, UBU and all of that before Reformasi, during Reformasi, all that. But our time, right, we say, yeah, where's UBU today? Where is the activism type of school? We knew that we needed the informal type of parallel education to challenge the formal education that we are taught about maths and accounts, but we are never taught about how you challenge power, how do you get power, how do you mobilize people, how do you make phone calls, how do you... So it's really time when you talk about solidarity, not just in terms of issues, which I've shown is interrelated, and it's, of course, I agree that it's all ASEAN, but in terms also of education and awareness. How do activists now make a second step that we've always been talking about? We talk about education, but our education has always been ad hoc education. You go and get 30 people and then you do training. Perhaps it's really time, and FORSEA is something, an organization that can really look into it and say, okay, let's challenge power. Let's have activism school. Let's get people who are needing of that kind of political awareness, support them, bring out activists. Activists should be professionals, I'm not saying that they are unprofessional, but when people say, oh, Hisham talks to the government, right? But the government doesn't want to listen to Hisham because Hisham is not educated as a professional activist. That's what the government will say, right? So they say, oh, every NGO or every CSO that we go into meetings with government, or they look down on us because we are never trained in civil society work. It's just like we become accidental activists. All of us are accidental activists, but I think the conversation needs to start moving towards how do we formalize and how do we professionalize activism? How do we professionalize demonstrators? How do we professionalize instigators? How do we professionalize this type of work in
Yep.
parallel to letting it grow organically? And so I think that is my point. But the just a very quick note, right? I have not analyzed, seen, or even read about the role of the monks in Thai society. Maybe Ajahn Sriprapha can mention it, because you see how the role of the monks were.
Yes, very quickly. Yeah, because we are running out of time. We only have 6 minutes left. Very quickly, Dr. Sriprapha, if you can tell us in 2 to 3 minutes, like the role of the monks in this protest.
Very interesting. If you watch televisions and follow the news of demonstrations in Thailand, then you see a few monks. Those, of course, wearing yellow robes, joining the protestation. And then there has been the question in Thailand within the Sangha administration, because one of the rules for the monks, by the way, the monks do not have right to vote, because voting is considered as a political act. So, the fact that some monks join the protestation actually make people raising the eyebrows, in the sense that they are not expect to see the monks. But of course, the monks in Thailand, I feel that they are quite different from the monks in Myanmar, because the monk movements, Buddhist movements in Myanmar is, I think, stronger politically than the monks in Thailand.
Yeah, can I just say one
Yes.
thing on the monks in Burma?
Sure.
I
Yes,
think
Dr.
the monks can be progressive force as well as regressive force. Monks in Myanmar have supported the genocide of the Rohingya. Yeah, the military manipulates the Sangha organization that they patronize, and so I think monks, like technology, are double-edged sword, and so we need to be careful. There's just one thing, like on picking up on Edmund's point about the need to professionalize and build well-trained, essentially community organizers. I think Ajahn Sriprapha's institute, she set up this Human Rights Institute. I think that's one of the best institutes in the entire Southeast Asia, and I say in the world as well. And so many of us would like to tap into existing human rights and international law institutions that perhaps to make it more I guess action oriented rather than more formalistic and academic, and both are needed, and we can complement each other in terms of the formal mainstream as well as more radical type of activist training.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zarini. We have a lot more questions. Unfortunately, because of time, we may not be able to answer them this time. But we really appreciate the participation of the audience. Yeah, it's been a very fruitful conversation, and I would like to thank, on behalf of the Islamic Renaissance Front, I would like to thank all our panelists here who have shared with us their time and their knowledge. Yeah, Dr. Sriprapha, Dr. Zarini, Mr. Hishamuddin, and also Mr. Edmund Bond. Yeah, this has been a very fruitful discussion, which we would like to continue, of course, at a later stage. But for those who want to read more about some of these issues, you can read. There's a lot of information on Dr. Zarini's website, okay, which is Maung Zarini, ZARNI.net. Dr. Zarini is a very prolific blogger, so you can get a lot of information on his website. So let me take this opportunity.
Najib?
Yes.
Could I very sorry to interrupt you.
Yes, please.
Just want to introduce another website on top of the website of Zani, which has been always updated. Any people interested in following up the situation in Thailand, you can also visit the website of iLaw. If you type iLaw, you'll be seeing different information there and always updated with very good analysis. Thank you.
Mhm.
Both
Thank
in
you
Thai
very
and
much.
English, of course.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sriprapha. So we have two websites that we can use for our reference here. So there is Dr. Zarini's website, and there is also ILO. I'm not sure whether it is ilo.net or ilo.com. Yeah, so but just type ILO and you'll be able to access this. So with that, yeah, the session has come to an end. On behalf of the Islamic Renaissance Front, I would like to thank all the panelists. I would like to thank also our audience for contributing to this seminar, and also the IRF team who has put a lot of effort in organizing this seminar. So thank you very much, everybody. We look forward to having you again for our next webinar. With that, thank you for your participation. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.